Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Purvi Mehta. She is professor at Cornell University. Purvi, hi, thank you so much for joining in. And there's just so much to talk about with you. But first of all, the latest advisory that the government has come out with in sense of obesity and overweight and how sugar and edible oil perhaps should be eaten in moderation. We've been talking to a lot of FMCG companies and an industry impact on that. But how would you look at these statements and an impact on agriculture?
So, thank you, Manisha. I think sugar is suddenly not good for anything and anybody, right? I mean, from a consumer perspective, as we know, the demand for sugar is going down. Also, not just because people are cutting down on sugar, because there are a very large number of substitutes, natural as well as non-natural, that are being constructed. So, if one looks at last 10 years, there are about 17 new sugar substitute which are commercialized at a very large scale, which has been come in the market. And so that there are certain factors there. But so that's from a consumer perspective, as you said, from a health perspective and so forth. But from an agriculture perspective also, sugarcane per se, I would not call it the most climate resilient and most climate adaptive crop. Uh, while I'm saying that, I'm extremely mindful of the kind of livelihood sugarcane generates, especially in a country like ours, especially in certain states like Maharashtra and Gujarat and UP and so forth. So the livelihood aspect of sugarcane is extremely important to this country. But only looking at it from a climate perspective, from its water consumption perspective and things like that. It's not just about the spoon of sugar, it's also about the amount of water that goes in creating that spoon of sugar, right? And so there needs to be a proper balance of how do we cut down on sugar cane growing as well, because also in response to its slightly reducing demand. But at the same time, it is also very important to see, okay, so instead of sugar, what is it that we bring in? And there is a huge opportunity for diversified crops, because a lot of areas in India, the sugarcane is growing in pretty good soil conditions and pretty good water availability and irrigation availability conditions. A large part of it is rain fed, but still. And so balancing those resources with sugar is going to be very important. So the consumer benefits, the environment benefits, the livelihood benefits, and also the industry benefits, where bringing in alternate products instead of sugar, bringing in various different kind of processing capacities within sugar industry, huge opportunities there.
Oh, well, absolutely. Dr. Mehta, the other thing that I want to talk about also is the inflation numbers. Those came in just yesterday. And after that big spike that we saw in many of those food commodities in the previous year, clearly and thankfully hasn't carried forward. But what does it really mean? Because the MSP has continued to increase and inflation declines.
Yeah, I think the retail inflation going down, and now at about 2.3%, I think is a good sign, right? I mean, it is a good sign of various things. It indicates a lot of things. It indicates higher demand of diversified food, which is a good thing. It indicates a demand for better value chain management, because it is not, a food price is not just a factor of how much more food has been produced, but it is also the factor of how well that food was then brought through the value chain to the consumer. And so, classically, typically in India, for example, we used to say, 10 years ago that about 38% of the food that we produce gets lost in post-harvest technology, right? Or in the process of bringing the food from the farm to the fork. But we seem to have done better in terms of managing our value chains and all that. We are probably protecting our produce much better than what we used to do, and I think so. So the value chain probably is getting better, and so there are a large number of factors that probably influences this, and of course the monsoon, and of course the factors that influence agriculture has influenced this. So retail inflation or the lowering of it indicates a lot of other factors, which are agriculture and non-agriculture factor. So from a consumer perspective, this is really very good because it will create higher demand. It will create better nutrition for our people, better affordability, better access, all of that. From a farming perspective, for a farmer's perspective, it can be seen as a mixed blessing, right? Higher food prices often also would mean, and I say not always, but often, would also mean probably higher price for the farmer, which doesn't happen in every commodity, but so that also. And so higher competition in farming is what this indicates also. And so from a farming perspective, it is a mixed blessing. But from, I think, diversification perspective, because as we know, the staple crops like the rice and wheat and those crops, there is not a huge difference in the prices in terms of how the prices have changed. A lot of the lowering of inflation is because of the diversified commodities or the non-staple crops like vegetables and fruits. Vegetables, I believe, is at they say about 3-year lower price indicator and so forth. So the lowering of the pricing is in diversified commodity, and diversification is always good for the consumer because India needs more calories from diversified food, but it is also good for the farmers because diversified cropping systems gives farmer much more income. Honestly,
absolutely, and better remuneration,
and
perhaps, as well.
It is also good for private sector because it creates huge opportunities for diversified seed businesses and lot of those agriculture input supplies.
Yes, it does.
Okay, all right, Manisha, as well as Purvi, for a very enriching conversation there. We'll need to take a break with the news that the mid-caps have picked up a little bit of pace. So at the high point of the day currently for the mid-cap index, up around 0.7%. We'll take a short break. More on the stocks and markets once we're back. Stay tuned.